Cat is the simplest Unix tool there is. Read a file, print it out to standard out. Today we're rebuilding it in Rust from scratch, and by the end of it, it's going to look like this. This is the first task we're going to work on, which is CLI arguments parsing. For this, I could use standard env args and handle the commands manually, but I'm gonna be using a much cleaner approach, which is derive macros in clap. So let's first install clap, cargo add clap with the derive feature. Now we need to use clap parser. Let's create a struct with the arguments that we have is line numbers. It'll be a boolean. We're also gonna have a theme, which is gonna be a string. We're also gonna have another boolean flag, which is no color, another boolean flag, which is list themes. Finally, we have the files, which is gonna be a vector of strings. Let's set up the derive macros for this. Derive, let's throw in debug and then the parser. And in order to get these flags working, we need to provide more macros here. So first one's short. Short is gonna let us enable line numbers with just -n. Long would allow us to specify -- line numbers. Copy this, and we're gonna have just long here, and also a default value. Let me put in the first theme in here, which is base 16 ocean dark. We'll use the same here, and files does not need anything. Args, let's initialize this. Args parse, and let's print this out to the screen. Since we have debug enabled, we need the question mark here. There we go. We've got line numbers, theme, we've selected the default one, list themes, and files. Now, if we wanted to list themes, we would have to type -- list themes. Whoops, I forgot. We need to put a couple of dashes here. There we go. Now we have list themes set to true, whereas here it's false. Let's see what other task we have. Next is list themes. We've completed this. We've shown that we can set that flag true. Let's write an if condition. If we specify list themes, exit the program after we list the themes. Args.list themes. Let's just print this, else. There we go, we've got list themes. Okay, and if we don't have any arguments, it should print files. There we go. The next task is reading files. Actually, let's list a couple of themes before we move on. So list themes, instead of saying list themes, let's do available themes. Make this available uppercase. So these are the themes that we have in the library syntect. And for theme in themes, print line theme. Let's see how that looks. I'd like to put a space and a dash here. Much better. The next task is reading files. So for this, we're gonna be using BufReader. So use standard IO BufReader. We're also gonna be using readline on BufReader. For that, we're gonna need BufRead, and then we're gonna need file in order to open file. Just these three. So let's open a file here. Let's actually get the file name and print it out to the screen. For file name in args files.iter, because we don't want to consume args when we are at the end of this for loop. Let's do file 1, file 2. Whoops. Oh, I got this. This is from the fs module. My bad. There we go. We have the files. Now, I'd like to show you some files that I have. I've got file 1, file 2, and test.py. I'm gonna type here processing file name, and then I'm gonna create a reader, which is gonna be a BufReader, and I need to pass a file in here. And this function open is going to be returning a result. As you can see, we're getting a result. So we're gonna have to handle this result. I am going to change the function signature to be a result of this, and then handle all generic errors. So it's gonna be box din error. And then we're gonna need to return an OK at the end. And in here, we're gonna be able to unwrap this and get the file in here. And let's pass in the file in there. We're also gonna be using a line variable. And this line variable will be reused for every single line in the file. This is called the read line plus clear pattern. It's intentional. We're reusing one string allocation across every line in every file. Therefore, the program execution is predictable. And here we're gonna print line. Notice that I didn't use print line because this line captures the line ending in the file. Okay, now let's try. Our files are in data/file1. Let's see. There we go. That's file 1. Let's pass in two files. File 2. We're getting processing file 1. Processing file 2. Now we can move on to the next task, which is syntax highlighting. Let's mark this task as done. So for syntax highlighting, we're going to be using the library syntect. It's the same library that bat uses to find the right syntax for a file. So let's first add the library syntect. That is done. This is the syntect related stuff. We first need to get the extension for the file using standard path, new file name dot extension. Once we have the extension, then we can figure out the syntax for it. This function returns an option. We need to handle the case where we do find syntax and the case where we don't. This is the case where we do. In here, we're gonna need a syntax set. We get that from let syntax equal to syntax set load default new lines. Did we import it? Yes. We also need a theme set, which is ThemeSet and load defaults. Did we import that? Yep, right there. So from syntax set, we need to find syntax by extension. I think I have a typo here. By extension, and let's pass in the extension here. And we need to pass a reference to this, to string lossy, and this will return a option, and we need to handle the case where there is a syntax and where we don't find a syntax. So again, bear with me, I'll clean this up. Some syntax, so syntax set find. In the case where we do find syntax, we will return syntax. Otherwise, we are going to do syntax set find syntax plain text. We need another match statement here, and then there is the none case, which is gonna be syntax set find syntax plain text. So as you can see here, there's a lot of repeated code. So let me simplify this. So I'm first going to simplify this part here. I'm gonna remove the match, and then I'm gonna do unwrap or else instead of this. I'm just gonna simplify this part to unwrap or else, like that. And then I am going to simplify this match statement as well. Grab this, and then I'll do a and then, since I get the extension, remove this, pass in the extension here, and then close that. Unwrap or else that. I don't need the none, and I can remove this, and I can remove that as well. And there you go. This is much cleaner, and this is how you get the syntax. And now we need to get a theme. We can get a theme from this ThemeSet, which is the default theme. I believe we can do it from args.theme, but this is a little bit dangerous because they might pass in the wrong theme. Let's first specify the default theme. We got to make this work first. Then the next thing we need is a highlighter, and we need highlight lines, which is here. Did we import that? Yep. New syntax and theme. And then over here, we need to create arranges, which is gonna be a vector of tuple, which includes style, and a string slice. That's gonna be equal to the highlighter dot highlight line. We have the line. We need to pass a reference to the line, and we pass in the syntax set. This will be giving us a result. So we need to unwrap that. We'll use the question mark operator, and we pass in a reference to the syntax set. Then we need the colored line as 24-bit terminal escaped. Did we import it? Yep. So this is gonna be the ranges. And then do we want a background? I don't like to have background. False. And let's print this colored line. I believe I have a Python file in the data directory. Let's take a look. Yeah. So we're gonna call our cat with the Python file. I have a typo. There we go. It's printing out with colors. Nice. Now let's see what's next. We have real themes. Okay, syntax highlighting is done. We can get the real themes from the ThemeSet. Move it over here. We can do ThemeSet.themes.keys. Let's make sure it works. List themes. There we go. Yes, that was a quick one. That is done. What's next? Line numbers. So for line numbers, over here, we just need to be counting. We can do let mut line number equals to 0, and then we can increment it here. Line number plus equal 1, and then if args dot line numbers enabled, we can do print, give it about 6 spaces, and then 1 space here. Then let's give it line number. Let's see, this is without line numbers. And now with line numbers. Nice. What is the next task? Standard in and TTY detection. This is done. So standard in and TTY detection is if someone pipes into our tool, then and also runs without arguments, we assume the data is coming through standard in. So let's add this line over here. If args.files is empty, then we're gonna make it to this. Otherwise we're gonna clone the files, and then we need to later handle the case where when we have this. So here's a little problem. To get the standard in, we have to use stdio stdin. We need to either put this or this in the BufReader, but the compiler won't let the same variable hold both of them. So what we need to do is create an input, which is gonna be of type box didn't read, because BufReader, as you can see, accepts anything that implements read. So if file name is a dash, then we're gonna grab from standard in. Otherwise, we're gonna open a file. Then we no longer need this. We're gonna put input here. Now let's see if this works. Ooh, I need to import read, so I also need to use the files variable from here. And let's do data test py, and let's pipe that into, let's see if TTY detection works. Nice. Can we get line numbers? Nice. Let's see if we can pipe to another file. Perfect. TTY detection is done. Now let's refactor this piece of code. It is looking very messy here. Let's see, what can we do first? We have ThemeSet and syntax set here. Let's put these things together and we will put them in another function. We will call it load syntax assets. It is going to give a tuple of a syntax set and theme set. We could just do, now over here we can do let syntax set and theme set equal to load syntax assets. I have the order wrong here. There we go. Next, this is very ugly. Let's try move these somewhere else. Like the only thing we need from here is highlighter. Therefore, we'll move this out. Highlighter equals to, and then what we're gonna do here is a new function, which is build highlighter. It is going to give us a highlight lines. We're gonna do this. So what do we need here? We need the file name. That's a string slice. What else do we need? We need the theme. We need the syntax set and theme set, which is a reference to syntax set and theme set. We need to give a lifetime. So highlight lines holds a reference internally. It borrows the syntax definition from syntax set and theme from theme set. It doesn't own copies of them. So when you return highlight lines from this function, the compiler needs to know how long is it safe to use this returned value. The answer is only as long as the syntax set and theme set it borrowed from are still alive. Syntax, which is taking the syntax set, and then the theme, which is from the theme set. So let's specify the lifetime tick A, and then we're gonna add this here, here, and here. And let's return this. There we go. This is still looking pretty ugly. Let's also move this to another function, list themes, since we're going to be calling this ones and we don't need syntax set, theme set. Let's load syntax assets. Let's copy this over and we'll just call this over here. And I think I want to move, what error do we have here? Highlighter. Oh, we have a typo here. Let's see if this works. We need the highlighter to be mutable. There we go. Now I want to move all of this out into its own function. Let's call it print file. It's not gonna return anything. Let's throw this in here. Now what do we need? We need file name, which is a string slice. We also need args, which is a reference to our arg. We need syntax set, which is a reference to syntax set, theme set. That should be it, but we're gonna have an issue with this. So this needs to return a result. And over here, we call print file. And also, we don't want to break the whole program when a single file doesn't work. So this returns a result and we match on result sorry, this is not option. This is a result. Okay, we continue. None. This is an error. And we can, since this is a match, we can simplify this to, we can do this. If it's an error, then we do that and we can get rid of this. Much cleaner. Here it's still looking quite messy. Let me move this into a new function, call it process, and all it needs, I believe, is args. And we don't need this to be here. We also don't need this to be here. Is this looking good enough? I think one thing we're forgetting is this. Here, what we're gonna do is let use color equal to standard out dot is terminal. For this, we're gonna need an import is terminal. Do we have that? And we also need to make sure args has no color set. So this, we need to pass it in over here, which will come through here. It's a boolean. Now this, we'll move it a bit lower, like here. And we're gonna make it an option. And that is gonna be if use color, then we return some highlight lines. Otherwise, it's gonna be none. And then over here, we're gonna do if let sum h equal to highlighter, then we do this, else we just print line. This is gonna be h. It's immutable, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna get a reference of mutable h. Now that should work. Now let's see if that works. Oh, we have double imports. Oh, it's here. Now we're going to disable syntax highlighting, no color. Nice. Let's see now over here. We're done with all the tasks. Our main function is looking pretty clean. Process function is looking clean as well. I don't think we need this anymore. We don't need this debug statement either. Listing themes, build highlighter, load syntax, and there you go, our refactor is done. We managed to get it done in roughly 130 lines. What we actually forgot to do here was set the theme that we're passing in. So over here, I'm going to be passing in the theme, which is going to be a string slice. And then here we're setting the theme, which is the default one. But what we're going to do is ThemeSet.themes. We're going to use the get. There's a chance that the user passes in the wrong theme. If they do that, we're going to unwrap and then we're gonna pass in the default theme, which is ThemeSet.themes, and let's actually hard code the default theme. We'll do that for now. Go up here. Default theme's gonna be a string slice base 16 ocean dark, and then we will replace it here. We also need to pass in the theme, which is .theme. That should be it. This is no color. We want with color. Let's print out the themes first. List themes. Let's try out this. There we go. Now themes is working. That is cat. 140 lines fully working. The thing I like about this project is nothing here is artificial. The box didn't read isn't a textbook example. It's the actual solution to a real problem. That's how Rust concepts land. Code is on GitHub, link in the description. If you want to see what I build next, subscribe. See you in the next one.